right, Al, we didn't get to this at the end of the hour yesterday. We started it. So, we are again learning how to write our very own narrative poem. And part of doing our narrative poem is we need to make sure that we have figurative language within that. So, what I asked you guys to do is turn to page 83 in your Learn book. That's that targeted poem that we first have been reading a lot of. And I asked you to read pages 76 and or excuse me, not pages. Apologize. Lines 76 through 77 on page 83. And what that says is, I know that now, but I don't have to let it completely redefine me. My day at school was like a game of basketball. So what I asked you guys to do was underline the simile. And remember, a simile is comparing two unlike things using the words like or as. So what you should have underlined was, my day at school was like a game of basketball, because you are comparing school to a game of basketball. All right. So then it says, what does like a game of basketball suggest about how Alexis felt about her day? I want you guys to think about this. Basketball, we learned about a crossover. Things go back and forth. Sometimes the points are higher and sometimes the points are lower. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So the same thing goes for school. When you are at school, sometimes you have great days and other times you don't have great days. So we can compare the two, school and basketball, because they very much go hand in hand, but they are very different from one another. So the question that I want you to ask yourself on this is, why do you think an author uses figurative language to explain a character? And the answer really is to make it a little fancier, makes you think a little bit differently. Instead of just saying Alexis had a bad day, people actually have to think about it. All right, so we've looked at this checklist before on page 93 of your Learn books, but it's a checklist that eventually you are going to have to do with your narrative poem. And you'll be able to do all of these things because these are all things that we have learned. So it says you will be using this checklist in the future as you begin writing your own narrative poetry. We will focus on the second item on the list, which is shows knowledge of how figurative language creates comparisons and images. So this is kind of like a math problem that you could think of. If you take a character and you give them a trait and you add in some figurative language, this is what's going to be better writing. Character, trait, figurative language. So for example, if I take the character Alexis, and the trait that I want people to understand is I want to emphasize her ability to adapt and change. She's a really good person that can change at a drop of a hat. That's a trait. The figurative language that I want to use is a simile, so I need to compare her ability to adapt and change to something else. So here's my example. In lines 13 through 20, it says, Alexis wears her pink shoes when she really wants her green shoes. On the basketball court, that might look like someone who was able to change course during a game. So using a simile, how can I add a line to her poem? So I could say, I forget my green ones and head for the pink, like a player ready for the rebound. Like. So we're comparing the fact that she wanted her green ones, but she had to wear her pink ones, and we're comparing it to a rebound, something being able to say, hey, I missed the first basket, but, and I'm going to try again. What you guys need to do is, you are not going to do it with your poster group. I know this says teamwork, but in this case, because you're watching a video, you're going to do it on your own. But I want you guys to pick the character that you did your poster on. So you are either picking Josh, JB, Mom, or Dad, depending on who you did your poster on. And I want you to think about these questions. What actions does the character take? Okay, what do they do? What character trait could you focus on? And what could you compare it to? And on your own, in your journals, I want you to write a line of poetry. Okay, you're not adding on to anything. You are coming up with a brand new line of poetry, explaining your character, Josh, JB, Dad, or Mom, giving them a trait, and adding in figurative language. So remember, just like this, character plus trait plus figurative language equals better writing. This one, the character is Alexis, the trait is the change, the figurative language is a simile. So that's Alexis, forget my green ones and head for the pink. Okay, That's her trait, being able to change, and her simile, like a player ready for the rebound. You are going to do the exact same thing in your journals. You guys, pages 30 through 52 in the crossover. And I realize some of you guys have already read page 30 and 31, but follow along with me. Please, please, please make sure that you are not just listening, that you are also following along. Here we go. The show. A quick shoulder shake, a slick eye fake. Number 28 is way past late. He's reading me like a book, but I turn the page and watch him look, which can only mean I got him shook. His feet are the bank, and I'm the crook. Breaking, taking him to the left, now he's took. Number 14 joins in, now he's on the hook. I got 2 in my kitchen, and I'm fixing to cook. Prepping my meal, ready for glass. Nobody's expecting Filthy to pass. I see Vondi under the hoop, so I serve him up my alley-oop. Okay, that chapter is literally about the show, which in this case is going to be about like the basketball game. You can kind of look and see the way that it's worded. It's definitely like a basketball being bounced back and forth. The bet, part 1. We're down by 7 at halftime. Trouble owns our faces, but coach isn't worried. Says we haven't found our rhythm yet. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Vondi starts dancing the snake. Only he looks like a seal. Then coach blasts his favorite dance music, and before you know it, we're all doing the cha-cha slide. Take it to the left. Take it to the back now, y'all. 1 hop this time. Right foot. Let's stomp. JB high-fives me with a familiar look. You want to bet, don't you? I ask. Yep, he says, and then touches my hair. Ode to my hair. If my hair were a tree, I'd climb it. I'd kneel down beneath and enshrine it. I'd treat it like gold and then mine it. Each day before school, I unwind it, and right before games, I entwine it. These locks on my head, I designed it. And one last thing, if you don't mind it, that bet you just made, I decline it. The bet, part 2. So right now, we don't really know what the bet is. The bet, part 2. If I lose the bet, you want to what? If the score gets tied, he says, and if it comes down to the last shot, he says, and if I get the ball, he says, and if I don't miss, he says, I get to cut off your hair. So JB is talking to Josh, and he's basically saying, like, if the score gets tied, comes down to the last shot, I get the ball and I don't miss. If I win the game, then I get to cut off your locks. Sure, I say, as serious as a heart attack. You can cut my locks off, but if I win the bet, you have to walk around with no pants on and no underwear tomorrow in school during lunch. Vondi and the rest of the fellows laugh like hyenas. Not to be outdone, JB revises the bet. Okay, he says, how about if you lose, I cut 1 lock, and if you win, I will moon that nerdy group of 6th graders that sit near our table at lunch. Even though I used to be one of those nerdy 6th graders, even though I love my hair the way Dad loves Krispy Kreme, even though I don't want us to lose the game, odds are this is one of JB's legendary bets that I'll win, because that's a lot of ifs. The game is tied. When JB's soft jumper sails, tick, through the air, tock. The crowd stills, tick, mouths drop, tock. And when his last second shot, tick, hits net, tock. The clock stops. The gym explodes. Its hard bleachers empty, and my head aches. So what just happened? Did JB win the game? What does that mean for their bet? In the locker room, after the game, JB cackles like a crow. He walks up to me grinning, holds his hand out so I can see the red scissors from Coach's desk, smiling at me, their steel blades sharp and ready. I love this game like winter loves snow. Even though I spent the final quarter in foul trouble on the bench, JB was on fire and we won, and I lost the bet. Cut. Time to pay up, Filthy, JB says. laughing and waving the scissors in the air like a flag. My teammates gather around to salute. Filthy, 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 they chant. He opens the scissors, grabs my hair to slash a strand. I don't hear my golden lock hit the floor, but I do hear the sound of calamity when Vondi hollers, "Oh, snap!" I actually kind of feel bad for him. All right, next chapter, calamity. It's a noun. We're going to hopefully be able by the end of this chapter to tell what calamity means. An unexpected, undesirable event, often physically injurious. As in, if JB hadn't been acting so silly and playing around, he would have cut one lock instead of 5 from my head and avoided this calamity. As in, the huge bald patch on the side of my head is a dreadful calamity. As in, after the game, Mom almost has a fit when she sees my hair. What a calamity, she says, shaking her head and telling Dad to take me to the barber shop on Saturday to have the rest cut off. Oh my gosh, can you guys imagine? He was only supposed to cut off 1 and he cut off 5 and there's a bald patch? Ugh. Mom doesn't like us eating out. Mom doesn't like us eating out but once a month. She lets one of us choose a restaurant, and even though she won't let him touch half the things on the buffet, it's Dad's turn, and he chooses Chinese. I know what he really wants. It's Pollard's chicken and barbecue, but Mom has banned us from that place. In the Golden Dragon, Mom is still frowning at JB for messing up my hair. But Mom, it was an accident, he says. Accident or not, you owe your brother an apology, she tells him. I'm sorry for cutting your filthy hair, filthy, JB laughs. Not so funny now, is it? I say, my knuckles digging into his scalp, till Dad saves him from the noogie with one of his lame jokes. Why can't you play sports in the jungle? He asks. Mom repeats the question because Dad won't continue until someone does. Because of the cheetahs! He snaps back, so amused. He almost falls out of his chair, which causes all of us to laugh and get past my hair issue, for now. I fill my plate with egg rolls and dumplings. JB asks Dad how we did. Y'all did okay, Dad says, but, JB, why do you let that kid post you up and filthy? What was up with that lazy crossover? When I was playing, we never... And while Dad is telling us another story for the 100th time, Mom removes the salt from the table, and JB goes to the buffet. He brings back 3 packages of duck sauce and a cup of wonton soup and hands them all to me. Dad pauses and Mom looks at JB. That was random, she says. What, isn't that what you wanted, filthy? JB asks. And even though I never open my mouth, I say thanks, because it is. So, just as a reminder, Josh is the narrator. He is the one that is telling this narrative story, these poems. It's from his perspective. He is talking about his brother, he's talking about his mom, and he's talking about his dad. And it looks like there's some twin stuff going around because they're at Chinese right now. And if you notice any of the things, JB was able to bring him exactly what he wanted. And Mom is at the very beginning of this chapter. She talked about, that Mom won't let Dad eat half the things at the Chinese buffet. And then it says that she's taking the salt off of the table. So I feel like you guys should start thinking about, why is she doing things like this? Missing. I am not a mathematician. A plus B seldom equals C. Pluses and minuses, we get along, but we are not close. I am no Pythagoras. And so each time I count the locks of hair beneath my pillow, I end up with 37 plus 1 tear, which never adds up. So he is missing his locks. The inside of Mom and Dad's bedroom closet is off limits. So every time JB asks me to go in there to look through Dad's stuff, I say no. But today, when I ask Mom for a box to put my dreadlocks in, she tells me to take one of her Sunday hat boxes from the top shelf of her closet. Next to her purple hat box is Dad's small silver safety box with the key in the lock and practically begging me to open it. And so I do, when, unexpectedly, "What are you doing, filthy?" Standing in the doorway is JB with a look that says, "Busted." Filthy, you still gonna give me the silent treatment? I really am sorry about your hair, man. I owe you, Filthy, so I'm gonna cut the grass for the rest of the year and pick up the leaves, and I'll wash the cars, and I'll even wash your hair. Oh, you got jokes, huh? I say, and then I grab him and give him another noogie. So what are you doing in here, Filthy? Nothing. Mom said I could use her hat box. That doesn't look like a hat box, Filthy. Let me see that, he says. And just like that, we're rummaging through a box filled with newspaper clippings about Chuck "Da Man" Bell, and torn ticket stubs, and old flyers, and... Okay, hold on. JB, his is short for Jordan Bell. So if they're looking through a box of things about Chuck "Da Man" Bell, right, and it's Dad's small silver safety box, we can probably assume that this box is full of stuff about his dad. Okay, torn ticket stubs, old flyers, and whoa, there it is, Filthy, JB says. And even though we've seen Dad wear it many times, actually holding his glossy championship ring in our hands is more than magical. Let's try it on, I whisper. But JB is a step ahead, already sliding it on each of his fingers. Until he finds one it fits. What else is in there, JB? I ask, hoping he will realize it's my turn to wear Dad's championship ring. So I would be questioning, what kind of a championship is it? I mean, I think we can probably infer that it is a basketball championship ring, but is it from high school? Is it from something else? There's a bunch of articles about Dad, triple doubles, 3-point records, and the time he made 50 free throws in a row at the Olympic finals, he says, finally handing me the ring, and an Italian article about Dad's Bellissimo crossover and his $1 million multi-year contract with the European League. We already know all this stuff, JB. Anything new or secret type stuff? I ask, and then JB pulls out a manila envelope. I grab it, glance at the private stamped on the front. In that moment, I decide to put it back. JB snatches it. Let's do this, he says. I resist, ready to take the purple hat box and jet, but I guess the mystery is just too much. Okay, hold on. So it looks like Dad has a really good crossover. When they call it a bellissimo, that's going to be Italian for like beautiful. He had a $1 million multi-year contract. So he's making a lot of money multi-year, so more than 1 year, with the European League. So we're not in like the NBA, but we are in Europe with that. And they grab an envelope that says private. We open it. There are 2 letters. The first letter reads, Chuck Bell, the Los Angeles Lakers would like to invite you to our free agent tryouts. We open the other. It starts, your decision not to have surgery means that realistically your patella tendonitis, you may not be able to play again. Ooh, that sounds like quite the conflict, right? Number one, they're really worried about, do we look at all this information because we're not allowed in Dad and Mom's closet. Number two, they're finding out some interesting information. All right, page 48. Patellar tendonitis, noun. The condition that arises when the muscle that connects the kneecap to the shin bone becomes irritated due to overuse, especially from jumping activities. As in, on the top shelf of Mom and Dad's closet is a silver safety box. JB and I discovered that my dad has jumper's knee, aka patellar tendonitis. As in, as a rookie, my dad led his team to the EuroLeague championship, but thanks to patellar tendonitis, he went from a superstar with $1 million fadeaway jumper to a star whose career had faded away. As in, I wonder why my dad never had surgery on his patellar tendonitis. Sundays after church. Sundays after church, when the prayers end and the doors open and bells hit center stage and the curtain opens up on the afternoon pickup game in the gym at the Country Recreation Center. A cast is full of regulars and rookies with cartoon names like Flapjack, Scoobs, and Cookie. The hip-hop soundtrack blasts, the bass booms, the crowd looms, there's music and mocking, teasing nonstop. But when the play begins, all the talk ceases. Dad shovel passes the ball to me. I, behind the back, pass to JB, who sinks a 20-foot three. See, this is how we act Sundays after church. So it sounds like they are able to pick up an afternoon game at the gym at the rec center. And it's JB and Josh and Dad. Basketball rule number 2, random text from dad. Hustle, dig, grind, push, run fast, change, pivot, chase, pull, aim, shoot, work smart, live smarter, play hard, practice harder. And that's where we're going to end. All right, so if you are to this section right now, this means that you have written a line of poetry, your very own line of poetry. You haven't taken it from the book, you haven't taken it from the Alexis poem. You made up your very own line of poetry and added figurative language, meaning you compared two very unlike things. Okay, if you're also at this part, this means that you have read pages 30 through 52 and you have taken the quiz in Schoology. Okay, hopefully you've done all that. If you haven't, pause it, go back, do what you need to do, and then come back. All right, so we are on lesson 10 of the crossover. And you guys are going to have 2 tasks to complete over the course of today and tomorrow. Your learning task number 1 is you need to be able to add a summary of Josh's conflicts from pages 23 to 51. So be able to summarize the things that he is going through, the problems. And then the second thing you should be able to do is write an explanation of the figurative language example previously developed to describe a character in the crossover, which basically means that you should be able to explain why you did the line of poetry or the line of poetry that you originally did with figurative language. But we'll get to that if that's a little bit confusing. All right, so remember our essential question is what are the intersections between stories and poetry? And hopefully you are realizing that they are basically on top of each other, right? This intersections of stories and poetry, they play a huge role within one another. So we're going to be trying to figure out what's happening in this text. We're going to determine the conflicts in the exposition of the crossover. So we're still in the exposition of the story. We have not gone up to the rising action yet. Remember that exposition is going to be one of the longest parts because they are explaining all of the good stuff before they get to everything else. So, in the pages that you have read so far, something happens to Josh's locks. If you don't know, go back and read. But your question is, why are Josh's locks important to him? So all you're doing is thinking about this in your head. Why are Josh's locks important to him? Then what you're going to do is you are going to open up your crossover book and you are going to read not only the poem or the chapter called Cut on page 38, you're also going to read the chapter called Calamity on pages 39 and 40. While you are reading these 2 things, and essentially you can skim them because you've already read them, or if you listen to me read them. But while you're doing that, you should, in your journals, write down JB's actions in your journal. Not Josh's. Remember, Josh is the narrator. But you're going to write down JB's actions in your journal. Go ahead and pause this video, do those 2 things, and then come back. All right, so our next question is, why might Josh view the loss of his locks as a calamity? Because remember, JB made a bet with Josh. Josh lost the bet, and he was only supposed to cut off 1 lock, but he ends up cutting off 5, and now there's like this big bald spot. So why is Josh going to view the loss of his locks as a calamity? Remember that question here, why are Josh's locks important to him? So think about that. Why are they important to him? And the fact that 5 of them have been cut off, why is this now a calamity? All right, so now you're going to open up your journals and you're going to record your response. You're going to infer, which means to make a smart guess, using evidence from the text, even though it's not directly stated. So you are inferring, you're making an educated guess. So I want you to infer, what conflicts do the loss of Josh's locks create? Okay, it might not say anything, but what kind of things are bothering him? What kind of problems might arise because his locks were cut off? Are there conflicts with dad? Are there conflicts with mom? Are there conflicts with JB? Is Josh having his own conflict? Go ahead and write these things down in your journals. All right. Once you have written down your thought process, now in your journal again, you're going to make a T-chart. This T-chart, I would say, make it like half the page of your journal. And on one side of the T-chart, you're going to write internal, and on the other side of the T-chart, you are going to write external. Using the conflicts that you just inferred, right, on this slide where I had you write those down, using those conflicts that you inferred about the loss of Josh's locks, now you're going to categorize each of these, okay? And you're going to think, okay, is this an internal conflict, something that Josh is going through on his own in his head, or is this an external conflict? Is this something that other people can see outwardly? Go ahead and do that. Once you have categorized by internal and external, we're going to really quickly talk about what those even truly mean. Okay, so there are many ways to categorize conflicts, but we're going to focus on two. Okay, so the first one that we're going to focus on is called an external conflict. If you want to write this definition in your journal, you are more than welcome to. But an external conflict is a problem or struggle between a character and an outside force. So this external conflict or problem is not going on inside of their head, inside of their heart. It is them against something else. Them against another person, them against, in this particular case, a dragon in the picture. But an external conflict is them, the character, against an outside force. Which brings us to our next one, which is an internal conflict. Again, you can write this in your journal if you'd like. An internal conflict is a conflict that a character faces within their mind. Kind of like a should I, shouldn't I, or gosh, I can't believe I said that kind of thing. That is an internal conflict. All right, so you'll see here that I crossed out find a partner. I know those of you are going, what in the heck, Miss Mormon? It just doesn't make sense with this being a self-paced lesson for you guys to go get partners. Sorry. So instead, what you are going to do is you are going to investigate other conflicts that Josh experiences, okay? And you're going to investigate that by reading 2 chapters. So all that is by investigating is you're going to start thinking about other conflicts that Josh goes through, other problems. So you're going to read this chapter, The Inside of Mom and Dad's Bedroom Closet, and that chapter is on page 44 to 47. And then you're also going to read this chapter, which is on page 48 to 49, and this is called Patellar Tendinitis. Both of these you have already read, right? So you might be able to skim them. But once you have read those, or while you are reading them, it says in your journals, write down or annotate detail, okay? This can be actual quotes. This can be you just kind of summarizing it. But annotate detail about Dad in each of these chapters. So what is going on with the dad in the inside of Mom and Dad's bedroom closet, and what is going on with the dad in patellar tendinitis? All right, so I'm assuming that you read those 2 things, and now I want you to ask yourself this question. What do Josh and JB learn? After going through Mom and Dad's closet, after learning about patellar tendinitis, what do Josh and JB learn? Then, once you know that, it says which annotation, what evidence that you guys found out about what he learned, best displays how learning new information makes Josh feel. So I want you to go back into the 2 chapters that you just read, which are The Inside of Mom and Dad's Bedroom Closet and Patellar Tendinitis, and which piece of evidence, okay, shows how learning new information makes Josh feel. Now that he knows about patellar tendinitis, now that he knows what was in the lockbox of Dad's in the closet, how does he feel now? Why does he feel that way? Okay. Once you have that, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to go up to my desk, and the guest teacher, or me, depending on if I'm there, is going to give you some note cards. On these note cards, okay, I would grab maybe six note cards. On the note cards, you are going to write a new conflict that appears in pages 44 to 49. Okay, so that's in the inside of Mom and Dad's bedroom closet and patellar tendinitis. You're going to write down new conflicts that appear on those pages. And then on each of those note card conflicts that you write, I want you to categorize them. Is the conflict that you wrote down internal, or is the conflict that you wrote down external? Okay, go ahead and do that. Then, once you have written down all of your note cards with the new conflicts and the whether they're external or internal, then what I want you to do is arrange your note cards in order from the most to the least important conflict. Don't worry about yet of external and internal. Just the first thing, you're just arranging them in your own mind, the most to the least important conflict. Then you can ask yourself, what are the most important external and internal conflicts? Be prepared. We're going to talk about this when I get back. But you're really thinking of, like, what's the biggest problem with this whole entire thing? You're almost done. Kind of. All right. So one of the learning tasks that you guys have to do, this is your number one, is that you are going to open up to page 30 in your Learn book. This is when we're getting into that narrative organizer again, that plot line. And you are going to, in the exposition, go down to where it says conflict. And you're going to add to your narrative organizer a summary of Josh's conflicts from pages 23 to 51. So you've been writing a lot of these down. I mean, if we really think about it and look back, you wrote down conflicts here in your T-chart, okay? And then you went ahead and you started thinking about conflicts and you wrote them down about these two chapters. So now all you're going to do is summarize them in like a sentence, okay, or in a couple of sentences. What were the major conflicts during that time period? All right, here's our last part. How might Josh having an internal conflict, okay, so Josh is having an issue inside of his mind, okay, with himself, affect the narrative arc of the crossover, okay, the character's feelings? How would it affect it? All right, so now we have gone through all of these different things, conflicts, how a narrator does the exposition, or not a narrator, excuse me, how an author does the exposition. Remember, our end goal is we are writing our very own narrative poem. So now let's get back to writing. So it says you're going to go in your Learn book to page 84. You're going to read the explanatory paragraph, and then be prepared to share why the author chose to use figurative language to help explain her story. So page 84 is, it's not part of the poem that you guys read, where the on-target writing model. This is actually like an author's note of why they did things the way they did. So go ahead and read that. And then, again, remember this checklist that you guys are going to be going for. What we're trying to figure out and be able to do is, can you show knowledge of figurative language and refer to specific examples? So basically, are you able to use figurative language to make your writing stronger? This one says, what comparison in the explanatory text does the author identify in the explanation? What comparison in the explanatory text does the author identify in the explanation? So what this is basically asking, I'm kind of looking at my stuff too, but what this is asking is the comparison that she makes to eating alone to sitting on a bench and not playing a basketball game. Like, why is she doing that? She's trying to show Alexis's emotions, but also emphasize her love of basketball. This is the last one. This is actually something that you can do. You do not need to do this alone. Once another friend is done with the whole entire 2 days of lessons, what you're going to do is you're going to find a friend and you're going to compare your line of poetry that you wrote in your journal a few days ago. This is the one that you did at the very beginning of this video. Then, when you find a friend and you guys compare, I want you to tell them, explain why you chose to compare your character trait to something else using your simile. What's the reasoning for it? And that is it. Once you have gone through all of this, it means that you are done with our 2 days. If you still have time left of class on Thursday or whatever day we're on right now, if I use this next year, you can work on missing assignments. You can read your own independent reading book. You can sit quietly. You can draw. Nobody should be playing any games on their iPads. Okay, that's it. Best of luck.